Hey everyone, and so we're going to now continue our lecture in regards to Module 5, and we're going to start by looking at that which is known as gender performances. Essentially, we're going to be having a conversation in regards to how does gender play into the roles of our everyday lives. This will then give us the ability to be able to kind of grasp, understand, and reach for this construction of the social reality that we're within and understanding why or how and what these types of interactions play out with in our everyday lives. Give me a second while I get this up and running for us and we will get going. So bear with me, apologize. Using it and changing it is not always as simple as it seems, or so I like to pretend. All right, so you should be able to see my screen now, and let's talk about what is known as gender performances. For a little quick TLDR, in that sense, we left off with a student submission. I hope you watched it right. Now we're talking about gender performances. So what does that mean? Well, think about life as a stage, right? Like Gotts Goffman's idea that we're managing our impression on a stage. We're having how we act is performative and reactive and based on our representation. And this is not anything different from how we also present ourselves, right? Like I'm a male, so I'm wearing a polo as a formal outfit, right? Like I could wear a nice professional dress if I was a woman, right? Or things of this nature. My hair is done very much so towards a style of some male with longer-ish, medium-ish length hair. These are performances. These are things that we are managing professions. If I came in here and chose to wear an outfit that would be differential or different from that which would be normal in a gendered scenario, it would be a choice. I'd be acting against it and I'd be managing an impression. And these are the performances we play, or we follow the rules of how we interact. Thus, gender rules, otherwise known as instructions we use for appearing and acting as a man or a woman in today's society. Doing gender. This is something that you're going to learn in this course. How are we doing gender? Well, you're following that which has been established as the rules that you have to partake in if you are to be accepted and understood as that which you're trying to present. Now, there are people who are non-binary. There are people who are gender benders in the sense that they like to play with this, right? We have the conversation around people like Harry Styles, who is challenging normative clothing options and behaviors of masculine perception, but no one really would go out of their way to call him a very feminine man. But at the same point, he also has a lot of connection, but there's the idea that we don't immediately associate this. But if you break these rules, in some cases, if you do not have an expectation or a separateness from this, many times if you don't follow the rules, you'll be considered to be breaking the norms or deviating, which we'll get to when we talk about deviance, which could lead to different labels. You may be associative of being gay, you may be associative of not understanding how you're supposed to act. And these actions and these interactions can relate towards establishing labels, which can then be deterrent from you going down certain paths, questioning yourself and wondering. So these gender rules, they matter. And doing gender is how we actively follow and break or follow the gender rules, and what are the consequences? Because there are consequences. A performance for others that fits or doesn't fit gendered expectations. Men shave their faces, women shave their legs and armpits socially. In the 70s, it was considered very of the times that pubic hair was not shaved. It was very much embraced. I'm seeing and hearing, I've been married so long, I have no idea that this might be coming back in, but even behavioral actions such as maintenance and grooming of hair, how long it is, where it is located, if you do or don't have it, these can be gendered and they're performative behaviors. Men shave their faces because we're supposed to. It's a defining of masculinity. Women wear dresses. Men don't wear dresses. That's not necessarily true. I'm not going to play the video for you that's next when it's making fun of this because I'll let you watch it on your own. They're funny and I hope you enjoy them. But yeah, dresses were originally, until the late 19th century, both genders wore them because they were easy to wash. The idea of pants were actually considered really not needed for the various long time because many people didn't understand why. Romans would actually go out of their way to chastise people, cultures who would wear pants. They believed that it was more masculine and more manly to wear dresses or like the little skirts they had, kind of like kilts, right? So you have this idea of the clothing choices we wear, the ways we act. Louis, you guys know the brand Louboutins, right? That was made for Louis XIII, right? So it was actually considered that only men could wear high heels for the longest time because high heels originated for horse riding. So you look at these objects and these material cultures that have changed over time and gained representation for being manly or not being manly. And it's fascinating because now you wouldn't know the difference because we've socialized you into the normative behaviors. A good example of this, it's nothing to do with gender, but I will always call, I'm from Chicago, I'll always call the Sears Tower, the Sears Tower. Its name's the Willis Tower. Any of you from Chicago, if you are, let me know. Do you call it the Willis Tower? Because that's its name now, but I'm always gonna call it the Sears Tower. things that are normalized and trained to you through socialization of your generation, they matter and they will become your normative behavior. And how we represent them changes and oscillates through time, and you do or do not follow, and you will follow them to match the gender rules and also social expectations. So many times what you're going to run into, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because I'm doing it. This goes back to Weber's idea versus traditional versus rational. Do we do this just because we always have, or we do it because it's a better way? And then you battle those two. So gender performances are a performance, and we are expecting the audience to understand us, and we follow the rules to do so. Again, funny videos, watch them, pretty good.
4 feminine things that were.
But let's go back to following the rules. So it's time to follow the rules or face the consequences, right? We are socialized to learn gender rules, which may change throughout our lifetime. They will change, not may. Why might we conform to the rules? Here's why. Do you like being alone and having no one talk to you? Do you like being accused of things? Do you like questioning yourself? Because society will do this to you. It'll make you question yourself. We train you through habitualization. Remember that word? Habit. Once we practice it enough, the norm becomes ingrained and just becomes a part of our day-to-day interactions. We get you to do these things from a young age. Think about, we paint rooms pink and blue. Here's a toy of a action figure. Here's a doll. These things are done on a regular basis that even parents may not know why they're doing them. How many people in California have gender reveal parties? How many people in California are fighting the construction of social gender? Like, why do we still do it? Because we want to have the celebration. We want to be a part of a social engagement. And then also we follow these rules because of the interactions as a group. We are a social creature and we want people to like us. So pleasure is a part of this. We like to present in gendered ways because it allows people to feel pleasure in the sense that they understand it. We are not confused by it. And policing, this is a big one. Not like police, like the policing, like people who are enforcing them. How many of you can think of the schoolyard incidents where someone told you your clothes were rippy? Someone told you that you can't wear that. Someone told you you look fat in that. Someone in my generation, they told you you look gay in that. Kids enforce these rules because they're taught to them by their parents. How many parents have told young daughters, any of the girls in the class here, you can't wear that going out? So there's these expectations put out there. Others will correct us if we violate the norms, and to avoid social isolation, we will follow them to meet the expectations. So consequences may be that others in society don't know how to interact, symbolic interactionalism, importance of shared meanings, yet rule breaking can lead to changes. That's another thing too. If we challenge these, like Harry Styles, like I mentioned, it may create change. Use of pronouns, I really don't feel like I need to go over these with y'all. I have it here just because it's important. A word that can function by itself as a noun or a phrase that refers either to the participants in discourse, right, I, you, or to someone or something mentioned elsewhere in the discourse. Some list of pronouns I'm aware of, and there's many more: she, her, hers, he, him, his, himself, they, them, theirs, themselves, sie, them, theirs, theirs. I'm a he, him, but how pronouns are being understood is much better by your generation than I'll ever even try. Gender identity is a social construction, and it is important not to misgender people so they feel seen. Pronouns can be an example of cultural lag. Think about baby boomers who don't want to change how they address someone. It's a simple change. It doesn't cost that much, doesn't even incorporate that much, doesn't even require understanding. If I ask you to call me they, them, why does that hurt you? Culture lag. Their norms, their socializations weren't matched, so they feel weird. Culture shock, social shock. Good video on this. I think it's kind of cool. Watch it if you'd like to.
Do my students ever go?
Gendering and socialization, boys will be boys. Problematic quote justifies toxic masculinity. I have a video posted. I want you to watch it. It's called Tough Guys. It's going to be a non-optional video. Trigger warning, it's very powerful, but it looks at toxic masculinity, the social script, or how we act based on the script we've been given, right? Get your lines, get your roles, your attitudes here, and follow. Don't deviate from it. This is a little extra. It's not on your slides, but I recently came across a TikTok where they were doing an experiment that I'm well aware of happened years ago as well. And this is mostly directed at the women in this class, because and I'll talk about why in a second, but there was a famous thing called the Vagina Monologues, also the Dinner Party, and many other avant-garde art pieces that really asked the question, and unfortunately the answer was not a good one, of how many women have truly learned to look at themselves. And I mean this by their genitalia area. Many women go through life without even looking at it because they've been taught that it's taboo. Sin, sickness, and selected, right? It's sinful. And the sexualization has been taught as sinful to many women. This is where you see these songs coming out and women taking back the right towards their body and stuff we're going through the Roe v. Wade, and also sexualizing and feeling good about ourselves. But this TikTok was people 18 to 30. And they were having the same experiment where many women in their 30s had never looked at themselves. Boys are over-socialized on this. Young boys run around like it's a gun in their hands and then solicit unwanted pictures of their genitalia, AKA dick pics, right? And so it's not, they're taught to love their genitals. They're taught to be very self-understanding of it. The only time they maybe measure up in the sense of double entendre there, inadequacy is as they get older when it comes down to social expectations of what is considered to be big dick energy and just dynamic systems of this, right? But women are many times not really socialized to love themselves. And the reason I say this, and I want to bring this up in this class, is how are you expected to be a part of the social continuum and loving themselves and taking care of yourself if this is still happening, where many women are taking care of their hygiene, right? You know, tampons, pads, stuff like this, but are not willing to look at themselves, because how can you express love outward if you can't even express love inward? So I think that the gender and the socialization of how we experience ourselves needs to be really looked at, because I'm seeing all these empowerment videos, WAP, I'm seeing all these people talking about acts of sexual satisfaction that are putting women at the forefront. And I still see, and yet we're still having that conversation that in the 70s and the 60s they were having, of women not even knowing what their own bodies look like. So if we're shunning and shaming and sinning the idea of the socialization of gender, and you're seeing another example of the control of the patriarchy, of making men feel empowered for being born with a penis and women feeling sinful or shunned for having a vagina. So it's very fascinating to think about this, and it's something that needs to be looked into. I'd love to have a conversation with respect towards people's opinions on Yellow Dig about this. I don't want anyone to say anything that would cause confrontation for the sake of confrontation, but it's having dialogue that makes things important. So gender and socialization. Socialization when it comes to gender, teach them young, make it a habit. Already mentioned this, it's how you reinforce it. Media reinforces roles. What do you see, right? Laundry, trash, cars, cleaning. Who takes out the trash? Who doesn't take out the trash? Who cooks dinner? Who doesn't cook dinner? Think about all the ads. How many times is it a woman that's on the front of a cleaning ad for Tide or for laundry detergent? These things are powerful, and they have the social lens towards what you understand. That which you haven't experienced and you experience through personally and you experience through media becomes your understanding and your representation. That's why it's so critical to have representation. If you've never been somewhere with diversity in the sense of other cultures, you may not know how to act culture shock. If you see media reinforcing that women are cleaners, that's going to lead you to believe that men are the protectors and the trash takers. It reinforces the behavior and the pattern. Also observing your parents. If your parents had a very much binary dynamic where one cleaned, one worked, one took care of the house, one worked, right? This creates a view of how you think society is going to work. This ties back to reference groups, right? You evaluate your entire setting of your life based on the reference of the groups around you. So sexism, by definition, ideology based on the belief that one sex is superior to another, prejudice, beliefs that value one sex over anything else, lack of access to resources, varies in severity, level of socioeconomic status. Think about the people right now with the shortage of tampons. Those with money aren't exactly worrying about this. Ability to having scans and having breast scans, looking and taking care of ourselves, both male and female, are not equally divided. There's lack of hospitals, resources out there that allow people to have better understanding of our sexual orientation, our sexual health, and our gender representation and gender understanding. Legal with practice and discrimination, legal/illegal as it persists, micro, macro, tying right now to what's going on. Roe v. Wade was overturned. The ones who are wealthy and the ones who can afford to just go around it will. The ones who can't, don't. Who do you think really gets impacted by the lack of ability to have a safe abortion? If you think they go away, then you don't understand how hidden economies work. Now that they're no longer constitutionally protected and in red states banned, people are going to resort back to clothes hangers. And there has been the thing where people are using herbal abortions, which are basically pouring poison into your body to try to end a pregnancy. Do you know how many deaths have happened? Do you know how statistically damaging it is that most time it's higher rates, almost 250% to women of color than it is of Caucasian descent? Like, it's fascinating and painful and hard, and we need to look at this because illegal when practiced as discrimination, right? But it's not discrimination if it's protected, right? So now you have ideas of when people were facing certain things versus when they're not. So we really need to talk about this and look into this. Gender socialization, how we are taught what is what, family, education, peer groups, mass media, subconscious and conscious habitualization. It is ingrained into you. Representation of gender roles, we see it on the TV, we see it in our family. And what you see, what you do, right? It's as simple as this. I don't need to go much further on this slide. Gender stratification, this word again? Yeah, sorry, it's everywhere. Gender wage gap, inequalities of work at home, less prestige, male dominant culturally still applies. Men are very much, and this was talked about by Segwidge, as well as we go back to the idea of when we were talking about the moral value structure that women have been reared very much to be caretakers, men domineering leaders. So it's just difference in how they're raised, and that raising then changes the outcomes you have. Even with great strides in society, men still hold ascribed status of gender, not achieved status of prestige. Some facts on here, right? Men's work, even if basically the same, are given greater assumed prestige. Murdoch and White showed this in 1968. 84% of women versus 67% of men have a household arrangement about cleaning. So we still see men holding this master status of being the provider, even if the woman is. Many times women will offset it to make the man still feel like he is, because men have also been socialized in a negative way that if we don't bring money to the house, then we are nothing, because it is or it isn't that. It's definitive. And this is about where I'm going to shut off this one, because I'm going to make 3 videos because I want to make these a little shorter. Before I do, here are some statistics on how women are portrayed on screen in the top 500 films. Before 1809, women could not execute a will. Before 1840, women were not allowed to own or control property. Before 1920, women were not permitted to vote. Before 1963, employers could legally pay women less than a man for the same work. Before 1937, women did not have the right to have a safe and legal abortion, and now they don't either. So we're going backwards. Scary, huh? And like I said, when I posted in 2021, Texas, women are losing that ability, and now Roe v. Wade's been overturned. So what you're looking at again is women facing the impact of subordination, of the idea of being minority class. Even though they have more statistically amounts of people, they face the impact of minority status. So lots of scary things happening. We will start lecture on the next one here, which is gender roles can be reinforced visually, and we'll go there. So I once, as always, am happy to have had this conversation with y'all, and I hope you've learned something from this. I'll see you in the next part, and we'll finish off this gender lecture.